From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the business of esports. The Business of Esports podcast is sponsored by Esports Entertainment Group, a leading esports and online gambling company. For more information, go check them out at esportsentertainmentgroup.com. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul Dewalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, Jimmy Barada. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the love, the 5-star ratings and reviews. If you haven't already, go on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to this podcast or consume this podcast, leave a 5-star rating and review. Tell your friends and colleagues about it. We really appreciate it. And make sure to go to businessofesports.shop. You can pick up some fun, really fun Business of Esports merchandise. Jimmy, how are you doing this week?
Doing great, Paul. I don't know. I don't want to lose any listeners. I feel like I'm going to only talk about New World for the foreseeable future. So I'll just wrap it up and say I'm doing really better than ever.
Let's like small disclaimer. I think this episode, if you're listening, none of this episode's going to be any different. So congratulations to you guys if you're listening to this, and we know most of you listen to this content. But if you're watching, Jimmy, for the first time, really doesn't have his camera on, and it's because he was in this horrific heliskiing incident, and I've tried to convince Jimmy that jumping out of helicopters onto mountains and skiing down them was not prudent, especially as a senior kind of executive, as a business person. But Jimmy, you wouldn't listen, right? And now you've thrown out your back.
Well, I grew up playing SSX Tricky, Tony Hawk Pro Skateboarder. You see it on TV. Why can't I do that in real life, right? Like it should be the same.
Am I crushing your extreme sports dreams? So this is why you can't see Jimmy, because unfortunately, but this is the kind of trooper he is. He's holed up in bed, taping this podcast. So if you want to see Jimmy give up heliskiing, make sure to follow the podcast and send that comment. Reach out to Jimmy. Tell him the heliskiing has to stop because we want him healthy for the podcast. The good news is, Jimmy, I hear you've been playing New World all week.
I split my time between questing and farming. I have to say, I don't know what's more enjoyable, honestly. I've missed MMOs so much, and it's been definitely the silver lining in my current situation.
And how far have you actually progressed?
I don't know if it's impressive or not, but I'm level 35, and
wow, pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's not bad. But again, more than half of my time is honestly just going out, collecting mats and resources. You get a good amount of XP for doing it, but for me, it's I don't know. It's really satisfying to just go chop some trees down or mine some iron. I don't know why. I just enjoy it.
So, are you Team Profit on this? You now are convinced it's the next big MMO?
I definitely want to hear from our guests on their thoughts, because I know they have some roots in World of Warcraft. But as someone that played WoW back in 2006, and I was the lead tank for my clan, or I think we called them, what did we call them? Guilds. Guilds. Yeah. Sorry, that's a throwback. So I was really big in WoW, and I played Classic when they re-released, and with the exception of a few things like having your hearth easily accessible. You and I talked about opening your bag while running, to manage inventory. With the exception of minor tweaks, I don't see why I would ever play another one, at least for the foreseeable future. It's satisfying every need I think an MMO player looks for in today's day and age.
So it's definitely a question I do want to ask my guest because, and I have a bit of a bone to pick with my guests. We were supposed to play New World together, and that has never happened. But we have some amazing guests. We have two amazing guests on the podcast this week. They're incredible people. There are incredible business people in the esports world. I am so excited for them to tell their story to our audience, but they're also friends. And so I want to introduce none other than Joseph Chillrogg Urbanati, who's co-founder of Chili Mountain, and Sidkitten, who's the other co-founder of Chili Mountain. Welcome, guys, to the Business of Esports podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having us. It's awesome to be here.
So the most important question of all, before we get to any business, what happened to our New World threesome here that was never meant, that never happened, that never took place?
I've been on. I don't know about you. I've been on, Paul.
The cues are they're getting the better of me.
Is it the cue that stopped you? I don't think there's cues anymore, by the way. So that excuse goes out the window.
All right.
How far have both of you made it? Let's start with that question.
Don't embarrass me with the answer.
No, I got, I think, level 22 last night. But to Jimmy's point, I did spend like 2 hours literally just chopping trees yesterday. Like, it's so satisfying.
I may be level 6.
Oh no! Oh, come on! That's like the first 5 minutes of the game.
He's creating a twink character, right? That's the answer.
Playing the long game.
Guys, for our audience who maybe doesn't know about you, doesn't know about Chili Mountain, would love if you guys could introduce yourselves, talk about your backgrounds, a bit of the Chillrogg and Sidkitten stories, the Chili Mountain story. Would love just some of the how you got into gaming and what you guys are focused on now.
Yeah, sure. So I started gaming way back. Warcraft 3, I was a big Blizzard fan. So like Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft were big for me. Diablo, I played kind of all those. And then kind of like in 2015 was a bit of a turning point for me. I was in law school. 2015, Heroes of the Storm came out. I got really into that game. And also, if you guys know about law school, like your first year is very intensive. And then if you secure your job, you're kind of just like, it's very light, years 2 and 3. So I got a really high ranking in Heroes of the Storm. That's what happened there. So open division in HGC, I played kind of like a semi-pro team. I played like at a high level, top 200 US, whatever. And then like as that kind of went on with Heroes of the Storm, we all know what kind of happened there. Heroes of the Storm went down in 2018. It was a big thing. I think a lot of people know what happened, but just in case you don't, the competitive scene for Heroes of the Storm was cut by Activision Blizzard and kind of just like went kind of under. So in 2020, I'm practicing law at this point for 3 years. So in 2020, COVID happened, and then all of a sudden I have a lot of time on my hands. So what I end up doing is with Sidkitten, who has a big following on Instagram, which helps because that extra reach is really good for things in esports. We started throwing Heroes of the Storm tournaments to kind of help provide the scene, like help get into it a little bit, try and do what we can. And then kind of coincidentally, like awesome timing for us, Wisdom Media, which is a big like tournament organizing company in gaming, comes out with a new Heroes of the Storm league. They get a license from Blizzard. Blizzard licenses a new league, and they put a pretty good amount of funding behind it. So like, I'm not positive, so don't quote me, but the number is somewhere around $150,000 a season, something like that. So it's, it's not the millions and millions that were before, but it's still like it's a decent sized league that's going. So we applied for that. I had contacts from my time being a semi-pro player. I kind of knew some of the people, like some of the players. And because of that, because of my relationships there, and I had a stream going too, I was kind of in the scene a bit. We were granted a spot for Chili Mountain, which was kind of known as a tournament organizer. We held the only South Korean tournaments and cast it in English. We had some Here's the Storm stuff going on there. So HOTS has grown since then, which is exciting for me because I love the game. I'm very passionate about Here's the Storm. Super big fan. And it's kind of going well. Like in July, there's a 10,000 euro LAN in Paris. Our team competed in that. I was over there. HOTS is doing pretty good besides that. And then now we're getting into Super Smash Brothers a lot. Kind of Chili Mountain is an esports org that competes in different games. Here's the Storm and Super Smash Brothers is kind of the two that we're focused on now. LAN events at OS in New York City, we're kind of going into that space. LAN events at Brookland in New York City. There's nice like centers for like different competitions. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Hi, listeners. I am Sidkitten. It's me, Sidkitten, on all socials. I am a content creator and streamer on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, everything literally, focusing on like esports, business, or fitness and beauty. Also, co-owner of a Chili Mountain and representation by Ford Models, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, Chili Mountain, I kind of do like the day to day, which is pretty fun. And I guess my backstory is kind of like just like every child getting started with like video games when you're small. Like, I think the first computer we had was like a gateway computer, like the big old monitor, like that whole thing where it used like dial up to like connect to the internet. So that was really cool. It came with like CDs and like taught you how to play games. So that's kind of how I got started with like playing video games. And then like I kind of fell off from playing video games, and then in high school, like, my friends are playing, like, COD and, like, that game with the guitar, Oh, Guitar Hero. So I kinda, like, started to get back into it, but it wasn't really until I started working that I got back into, like, actively playing video games, which was with World of Warcraft Classic coming out again in, like, what was that,
19.
19.
Yeah. So when that came out, I was, like, hooked. I hadn't played World of Warcraft, like, ever. So Classic came out, and I was like, "Okay, I'm hopping on this," and Chill was the one that, like, put me onto it. So shout out Chill. And
Thank you.
so I was playing that for like 6 months, and then I got exposed to Chillrogg's community, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool, meeting people, like, blah, blah, blah." So then I was like, "Maybe I should start streaming." So then I started streaming and getting into that whole, like, world. But I actually didn't start streaming with World of Warcraft. I was playing Apex, which was, like, really big at the time. So I was, like, super into, like, shooters for a while, and then got off of World of Warcraft, and then went back and played, like, retail. So maybe like a year ago or 2 years ago is when I like started to get back into gaming like super hardcore. And then like obviously helping Chillrogg with like starting Chili Mountain, which is like how he said we started out as like a tournament organizer for like Heroes of the Storm because the scene was dead, and he was like, "I love Heroes of the Storm, like let's get tournaments and whatever." So we did that, and then Hero CCL, the HOTS League, came about. So we've been engaged with that and focused more on owning teams and different titles rather than like being a tournament organizer. But we are dabbling in that again. So yeah, thanks for having us, Paul.
I love the stories, guys. I want to start with a question or a line of questioning around Heroes of the Storm, because I think that's an interesting choice sort of as an initial focus. And, you know, when we step back and take a look at Activision Blizzard, you could argue that historically, at least, maybe not present day, but historically, they were a little bit of like the Apple of the gaming world in the sense that they didn't create genres, but what they did very well was take a genre that was popular and make a game that was better than the other games in that genre, right? Like World of Warcraft was not the first MMO. You know, there was EverQuest and Ultima and a whole line of MMOs before it. But World of Warcraft, they made it better, and they probably, you know, they made the best product out there. You could argue the same for Overwatch, right? Overwatch was not the first team-based shooter. You know, that was really a knockoff of Team Fortress, and Team Fortress was there before. But Overwatch perfected kind of the genre. With MOBAs, right? League already existed, right? And you could argue that Blizzard was applying the same model, right? There's an existing genre. We believe we can do it better.
Wasn't Heroes of the Storm before League? Like League didn't, or was it?
No.
Or am I thinking like something else? Dota, maybe?
You're thinking Dota 1.
Dota.
So
Oh, okay.
it's kind of, but it's different.
Yeah.
But so you had, you know, you have existing games there in that genre. Why do you think, you know, Heroes of the Storm didn't dominate the category in the same way many of their other games where they were going into sort of existing genres dominated those categories?
Yeah. I could talk on this forever, but I'll give the
Well, we have an hour
answer
for the podcast.
Yeah. So the concise answer, I think, is one, they didn't fully commit So like you'll see like Overwatch was a massive project. It was Titan. I think the budget was some absurd, like obscene number. A repurposing of Titan, which was massive. Heroes of the Storm, you always kind of felt like it was maybe the first iteration of Activision just pushing something out and just getting it done rather than making it that Blizzard perfect. Maybe this is the first victim of that. But Heroes of the Storm, like 1.0, when you first play it, it's not a great game. That's 2015. Heroes of the Storm 2.0, that big launch that, HOTS becomes number 5 on Twitch. It actually looks like, okay, this is really getting some traction. You get 100K viewers for the World Finals. During that time, the game is really fantastic. And it's like, okay, this is Blizzard polish. But you already have that 6 out of 10 rating on IGN. You already have these bad impressions. I think that was a big piece of it. The not giving it that Blizzard polish and kind of like half-assing it a little bit. Also, they're very late to the scene. League is out there and established in 2009. Dota is out there and established in 2010. You get kind of this unfinished game in 2015, 6 years later, and then they kind of fix it up over 2 years. It's very, very late. I think a combination of those factors, if I had to point to one thing.
And is there anything you think Activision Blizzard could do today to rescue the hero scene? Are we all sort of holding on to something that inevitably won't survive, or do you think that there's real potential at Activision to make a real go here?
I'd say let's broaden real quick. I'd say let's broaden that to other Activision titles as well, because I feel like a lot of them face similar challenges. So I just wanted to pose that to the two of you, if you could even broaden it beyond Heroes.
I would just add a caveat there that like I don't maybe it's just the wording of like rescue the hero scene, because it's alive and well. Like people like the fan base that like watch Heroes of the Storm and watch like the Hero CCL now, they love it. They're like super into it and it's like a huge thing. But if it obviously had the backing of like Blizzard and all that, like it would just be like major. So it was just like kind of like sad that, that the events that took place. But like yeah, as far as like reviving the scene or whatever, like I think as far as like a fan's perspective and like the people, everybody loves the game.
So you bring it like that's such a great point, and I do want to expand on that, because I think it's interesting with esports orgs. You see a lot of the big ones chasing the big franchises, right? They all want league spots. They all want Call of Duty slots. They're all buying sort of the big expensive franchises, and the team valuations at that end are quite large. And I think you have sort of a group of esports orgs that have taken a completely different approach and gone after what I would call games with very strong community support, but maybe less publisher support, right? Like Smash, like Heroes, right? And I don't know if this is is it a strategy of where you're not in control, because look, if you don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to buy franchise slots, this is what you have to do? Or do you think there's a real business model around building esports orgs with community driven games, right? Where you don't need the publisher support, where the community is keeping the scene alive and well? Because Sid, I think your point's a good one. Like the Smash scene is alive and well, but Nintendo doesn't care about it. I mean, Nintendo doesn't throw any money at it. So that can work. Do you guys see that as a business model for esports orgs as a whole?
Yeah, especially for these types of titles. Like, the community might be a little bit smaller, but if you're a Heroes of the Storm fan, like you must love that game after all the stuff the game's been through. Like those people are like very attached. They watch every weekend. They come out to every stream and they follow and they use their Prime subs and all that. And same thing for Smash. Like there are 4 different Smash weekly tournaments in New York, and all of them fill up every single week. These pros are playing 4 days a week and driving and paying the buy-ins and doing all this stuff, and they love it and they keep coming for years now. So I think, yeah, exactly. Look, the communities are smaller, but they're extremely engaged.
And
But
aside from
Sorry, go ahead, Sid.
Aside from it being like a business model, I feel like it just stays very true to who Chili Mountain is at its core. Like we started out as a Heroes of the Storm tournament organizer just because like we love Heroes of the Storm. Like that's just who we are, you know? Like there was nothing going on in the scene. It was like random tournaments here and there. And we're like, we're gonna set up a tournament, at least like $1,000 prize pool every single month. Like let's go. And like that's what we did, you know? So like it's more of like that's who we started out as, like a community and like a Discord of like over 1,000 people in it who just like super loved Heroes of the Storm. So it's something that I think we like stumbled upon that was really good, and now we're approaching it more as like a business model, like as an esports org, and being like smart about it. But it is really at the core of like who Chili Mountain is and like what we were like founded upon.
And I just want to push that point. Like if someone came along tomorrow and said, here's a $50 million check, right? We're going to put $50 million in Chili Mountain. Like, do you go buy a League of Legends franchise slot, or is there a vision around sort of building around, call it more underserved games and game communities?
Yeah. So you could almost look at it like stocks in a way. Like there are these big ones that are very exciting, but they're already really high, you know, like can they go much higher? Maybe. But there's always that those like lower end ones that the value isn't quite seen yet, and it could go to the moon. You know, something like that. Like looking where, what's the Warren Buffett quote? You want to, when everyone else is scared, you want to take a look at it. Paraphrasing, but that's kind of it.
And so do you feel like that segment of the esports market is ignored by most esports orgs?
Yeah, I think a lot of these are kind of glossed over for reasons that maybe are not problematic. So here's the Storm. A lot of bad press around it. The value isn't zero though, you know, of Here's the Storm. It's lower than it was, but it's not zero. So the bad press, it might be creating an overbias. Super Smash Brothers 2. A lot of bad press. Nintendo doesn't do the greatest like moves in terms of advancing their esports, but we think it might be overbiased also, you know, the value of the players, the value of the prize pools and all that. So we're kind of taking a look at where a lot of people aren't taking a look at to try and find some sort of value in there.
So, but you know, besides the limitation, I think, of publisher developer support, I also wanted to speak a little bit because I know you guys have involvement internationally, and you know, we're talking a lot about the virtual space here, but with physical separation, right? European leagues in particular, South American, Asian. You know, what are the limitations, or rather, how is your brand kind of crossing over into these markets and creating community that's not limited by one physical region? Is it because of that love of the game, or you know, is there more to that you can speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think internationally, mobile is a big thing on our minds right now. I know there's a lot of discussion about mobile on the podcast, but it's definitely like something we're very interested in. We think internationally is a better place for mobile after a lot of internal discussion. Something like India, something like Brazil, something like South Africa, Turkey. We're kind of looking around there for just like some teams that are like undervalued. We think that aren't getting a rate that is equal to how much value they're going to produce.
And it
then-
goes back,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, yeah, and it goes back to just looking at those communities that are like being overlooked by like the big orgs where they're saying like, yeah, we're not playing League or we're not playing the League mobile game because we can just play League. And it's like, okay, I understand that, but like mobile's like such a big market that like you can't just like ignore it, you know? Like I think FaZe Clan actually has like a what is that Free Fire game? Like they actually have like a Free Fire team or something like that. So I mean, they are kind of looking into it, these orgs. So I think it just like goes back to that you know we're trying to take a look in the spaces where people might have overlooked them because like you mentioned earlier, everybody wants like an LCS spot, which is like awesome, but there are these like entry level areas where I think some orgs can take a look at, and there may be really great benefits there.
I find it fascinating, right? Because it's this like long tail kind of strategy versus sort of just going after this middle bulk of, you know, League and CS and you know, COD. And I don't, you know, there's not that many orgs sort of looking there. And, you know, I think I could be convinced that there's definitely value to be unlocked, or that's value that's definitely being overlooked in those communities. And especially like on the content side, we've seen these kinds of niche communities create lots of value, right? You don't need huge audiences to have value, to create a lot of value there. Which brings me sort of to my next question around where content creation fits into sort of the Chili Mountain vision. Sid, I know you're a streamer and you're a content creator, but is part of the strategy to expand there as well? Like, how do you see it fitting in? How do you see it different from what some of the bigger orgs are doing? I'm curious, what does that like content creation piece look like to you guys?
Yeah, so I think that's something that like strikes really to the heart of like Chili Mountain as well, since like it just goes back to like building our community. And when we think of like New York, we know we have like one or a couple orgs, big orgs here in New York. But when you think of like big orgs, it's more LA based orgs. So what we're trying to focus on now is like being the New York org, or for people to think of Chili Mountain or New York and be like, yeah, Chili Mountain, New York, vice versa, and be the staple org for New York. And content creation really goes in like hand in hand and like really plays a big factor in establishing ourselves as that New York org. And like in our heads, we are the New York org because who else is doing it? And if they're doing it, do you think like, oh yeah, that's my org, you know? And I think also just going back to FaZe, they might have like an Atlanta like offshoot. But when you think FaZe, like, are you really thinking like Atlanta? Like you're thinking LA, right? Like or like I think Misfits is in Florida as well. But like when you think esports org, you're thinking like LA. Like everyone wants to be LA. But with like the LAN centers we have in New York and all the content creators and things like that, like there is a huge gaming presence in New York. And like we just want to bring the eyes to New York, because once people get big in New York, they move to LA. And it's like, no, you can stay in New York. Like we can be that hub and like be the New York versus LA, like again, or California, like hip hop battle, you know, but in like the gaming space, it's like you can be in New York and like you don't need to go to LA. So we're really trying to stick our roots here and convince people like you don't have to leave.
So kind of furthering the discussion, I think, of content creators and obviously this difficulty in losing talent to LA. I was curious, Sid, as to your I don't know, just challenges that you faced as as a woman content creator, and some hurdles I think that girl gamers face in the industry, and any insight or tips that you could share for, especially for our female audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna suck. It's really like there's like not an easy way to say it, but it like sucks. Like we were even just talking about this earlier. Like I just get so many weird messages, and like even till this date, I'm like big on Instagram or whatever. And it's like people still like have the audacity like message you like crazy stuff. So I mean, like it just takes like a tough skin, and just know that it's not gonna be easy. Like you're gonna get crazy messages and comments, especially when you're starting out in the beginning, when you don't have that much support and you don't have a big community. Like I feel like that's when people like try to break you down because you're small, you know? So you have those people that are like, oh, like you suck or whatever because you're small. But then once you start getting bigger, I did stop seeing as many of those comments, but once in a while I'll still get like comments here and there. And really the only thing that helps was like getting that big community to like help you out to where you do have a bad day on socials. Cause I mean, you still see the post or whatever, the comments on the post, and you're like, okay, well, like that sucks. They're calling me like whatever, or saying this or that. So it's nice to have the support from your community. So having like that support from like a couple close friends who are in this world and like understand what it's like is really helpful once you're like starting out, and then like keeping that circle close when you're like getting big like really helps. But I do want to forewarn, like it's not easy. Like it's actually more difficult for women in to be streamers and gamers because we are women. Like I know people always think it'd be easier, but it's actually like not. And it's like there's like studies or whatever. And I think we can even like look at the Twitch leaks that showed like you would think Ammo or like Pokey would be highest ranked. And it's like XQC, like first like 40, not even 40. I think she's 36, Pokey is. But I mean, first 36, it's all men. So I mean, like it's hard. It's difficult. It's not gonna be easy. Like but I think having like a good community and like a good close group of people that you can confide in is like super helpful. Like it just like sucks. Like I don't want to like sugarcoat it at all, but like yeah, like you'll get there if you just kind of like stick through it. But the biggest tip is like have that close group of community that can tell you like it's okay or like you're awesome, like blah blah.
Sid, I also noticed, just to build on that, you do a lot of your streams bilingual, right? English and Spanish. I'm curious, like what was the conscious sort of business decision or thinking there targeting Spanish speaking audience? Like, do you believe there's a lot of growth there? Have you seen growth there? Like, what's the opportunity there in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So for like content creation in general, not just focus on like Twitch streaming, any content you create, if you can do it in multiple languages, like I would highly suggest that because you just want to expand your reach as much as you can. So if you want to be on all social media, you want if you all the languages you speak, you want to produce your content in like every single language just because you're trying to like expand your reach. So that's like really all you're like thinking about or I'm thinking about and I would recommend. So that's kind of where that started. I've seen like really great success because I have people who come to my stream and speak only Spanish and I'll converse with them in Spanish, or other people will be like, oh, you speak Spanish, like that's even more convenient for me. So it just like helps you reach a greater audience. And I feel like people are really receptive because even if they don't know Spanish, they'll be like, oh my God, you know Spanish, I've been wanting to learn. And it just like opens up like a whole new discussion about like languages and like culture and things like that. And if you've seen my stream, it's more about interaction with chat rather than like, you know, all the aces I'm getting in
I
Valorant.
was gonna say
But
the top tier Valorant gameplay
yeah,
is what you
yeah, exactly. So,
for our audience. Sid was immortal, right? The last season, or you hit Radiant, I
yes,
believe.
yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I had to turn down some scouting calls I got, you know, but the Cloud9 girls, they're great.
you are
But
you do make it entertaining. I will admit, I have seen the stream and it is entertaining to watch.
yeah.
But no, like, because I'm curious, you guys talked a bit about, you know, on the Chili Mountain front, looking at Asia potentially, or, you know, Europe for some mobile esports, but sort of have this content view towards South America, Latin America, obviously, Sid, because of your background and your, you know, you speak the language.
Mhm.
Where do you, when you look at those two regions, do you see sort of one more interesting than another from an expansion standpoint for Chili Mountain? Do you like, how do you look at those two opportunities, and are they just two different paths? Or maybe Chillrogg, I don't know if
Wait, sorry. Could you repeat that?
it's just, I'm trying to reconcile sort of the view that you believe there's opportunity, for example, in mobile esports in Asia, right?
Yeah.
But then you have this massive sort of, because I believe there's a massive content opportunity in Latin and South America with Spanish sort of speaking content,
Yeah.
Spanish language content. You know, from a priority standpoint for Chili Mountain, how do you look at those two paths?
Yeah. So I definitely agree with you. Like in Latin America, there's massive opportunity for mobile. It's really just coming down to like going in there and exploring, maybe just talking to people and like building relationships and just trying to figure out like which community is the most underserved, or maybe there's some other, you know, like lightning factor. Maybe there's an amazing content creator who gels with our content creators during like interviews or something. But it is kind of like going there one at a time and like just kind of like look around a little bit. It would be a nice addition though if we had a connection in Latin America, because we kind of have that base already. But like we wouldn't discount like India or something either.
Yeah, and some of it is like trial and error also because we've had teams that are not New York based that are like in Sweden or in Germany and like, you know, trying different markets. So it's like we were mentioning earlier, like seeing which areas are underserved and where we can come in and make like a meaningful impact. And if that's India, we can try that. Or if that's Brazil, we'll try that. But it is really like a trial and error going in there and like seeing what the movements are and like kind of who the key players are and if that actually like helps move the needle for us.
I mean, Sid, I think you said it so well there. Like, is that the litmus test for you guys? Is it we can identify an underserved gaming community and we feel we can make an impact in that community? And if you check those two boxes, that's the right opportunity for you guys? Like, is that?
It's like a mixture of a bunch of factors, but I think that would cover like a lot of it. If both of those boxes are checked, it's like a very good sign.
Okay.
Are there other factors?
Jimmy, I don't know if you had other questions, but we you know, I have some news, relevant news at least, that ties into this line of questioning, but I wanted you to make sure you get your questions out first.
Yeah, let me ask one that I think is going to lead into one of the stories we had queued up. We didn't talk much, and I wanted to plug a little bit of the Chili Mountain apparel that you guys have on the site, which looks awesome, and definitely speak to that after I ask my question. But I'm curious from the two of you, your approach, I suppose, in growing your brand from an apparel standpoint, in comparing and contrasting specifically with 100 Thieves, where we've seen their Supreme style limited edition drops, the Gucci collab, etc., versus Immortals, having the more accessible non-profit based merch, and again, curious as to how you guys are approaching the apparel side of the business.
Yeah. So really, like, we do kind of feel in esports, there's a lot of apparel like stuff that's out there, and a lot of it is, I don't want to use the word overhyped. I don't want to like come off as like, oh, our apparel is like amazing, it's so much better, but like some of it is overhyped. So we want to kind of really dial in and just make sure the apparel is like excellent quality, and maybe even try, I'm not saying we succeeded, but try our best to push it towards that like actually being fashion space that I think esports is kind of reaching for. I would like Chili Mountain to be a part of that and to like meet that goal. I think we're doing well at it, but I think it's very biased of me to say like, oh, it's the best fashion in the world. But yeah, that's kind of how we see like Chili Mountain like fitting into that picture, into that apparel like kind of scope.
And so fast forward 5 years, I just want to follow on this question. If you fast forward 5 years, 80% of Chili Mountain's revenue is going to come, if you could choose. If it could come, 80% could come from apparel, 80% could come from like media / sponsorship, or 80% could come from tournament winnings. What's the business you'd rather have 5 years from now?
So if we have to pick an 80%, I think unexpected things would have happened if we get there, but that's how it goes. That's a tough one because we kind of value we balance those very closely, apparel and media. Tournament winnings, I think a lot of the time it's kind of like, the salaries go out and the winnings come in. And if it's even, that's great. I don't know. I think me and Sid will have to have a meeting. It's a really hard question.
Well,
we balance them very well.
Yeah, hopefully it would be our merch because people love it so much and buy so much of it, and in turn we'll get like sponsorships because people want to put their logos on our merch, right? So
there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
I like that answer. No, Jimmy, you mentioned 100 Thieves. And so that's like a great segue because we did have a couple of 100 Thieves stories that I think are super relevant in this conversation. Let me just bring the first one up here. Hang on. The first one here is, the headline is 100 Thieves announce return to Apex Legends Esports. And, it's kind of I don't know if it's kind of a nothing headline or if, we could spend a lot of time reading into this and analyzing this. My question for all of you guys is does it hurt esports when you have teams like 100 Thieves potentially rotating in and out of games when they're hot versus when they're not, right? And I think, again, what I love about your model is this very sort of hardcore dedication to the community around the game. And as long as the community is there, you don't really care if the game is hot or not. Does this hurt esports in your minds to have teams rotating in and out of games like this, right? Because Apex sort of went away and 100 Thieves left. And now that Apex is back, 100 Thieves is back. Curious to get your thoughts on this, guys. Open to anyone here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most amazing thing in the world for the fans to like have the influx of the support when it's hot and then it goes away when it's not hot. It feels a little bit disingenuous. I mean, not necessarily saying that that's what they're doing, but it does kind of like, it feels a little bit like that. So yeah.
Is part of it a talent problem, guys, you think? Like, is part of it that, they had signed talent that was expensive, and if the game sort of goes away, they can't justify the expensive talent, so they get rid of the team, and then when the game's hot again, they can justify the expensive talent? Like, is it a talent issue in your minds? Jimmy, I don't know if you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'll jump in. all these teams are kind of run as startups, right? Or they're all run as startups, right? And all of them, at least 100 Thieves and the ones we're talking about, are burning tens of millions of dollars every year trying to prove that they have a viable business. And I definitely think it's to their benefit that they can be agile, right? And be, publisher agnostic and play what's fun. To Joseph's point, it does come off as, as disingenuous. I don't think it's a talent expense thing. I really do think it's more whether or not there's a community there, and whether or not I think they're either winning tournaments or they're getting the views that they need to get to keep the sponsors and the other thing and to sell the hoodies. But back to Joseph's point about hopping in and then leaving, I feel like, and I say this a lot, you can't run as fast as you can in multiple directions. And at some point, I do feel like you need to commit to what your brand is and what your community wants, and what's authentic and true to you. So I'm not sure if it hurts esports as a whole for them to be hopping in and out. They did this with Call of Duty, right? 2 years ago. What I can say is I don't think it's the price of the talent. I really think it's them deciding on what they want to be and where they want to commit, and really just not staying focused and loyal to that fan base. So that's my read on it.
It's just strange because it's so different from traditional sports, right? We often make this comparison to traditional sports, but like you would never have like, Stephen Ross just this year decide, you know what, football's not that hot this year. The fan base is down a bit. We're just not going to field a team this year in football, right? Like the Dolphins won't exist this year, and maybe we'll come back 2 years from now, right? If the football fan base comes back, like there's no traditional sports analogy that sort of applies here. Again, I come back to sort of my original question is that part of the reason why esports proper, right? Like the pure competitive side of the game, while it has grown massively, right? We're still not seeing traditional sports teams kind of valuations, right? There's no team worth $4 or $5 billion yet. Is part of the reason that there's always this potential for, call it inconsistency and sort of risk around games becoming hot versus going away. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we still might be in the phase of esports where maybe things aren't quite like developed enough where there's like a guaranteed infrastructure like for a team, because if you think about like an NFL team, like the value of the team isn't really just the brand. It's, they have a franchise spot and they'll always have that spot, and probably a stadium that makes like a pretty consistent revenue. All these like kind of concrete things you can point to. Maybe esports, there's not as much of that yet. I think we're moving to a place where there's more of that, hopefully.
But Chillrogg, could I argue that maybe your model mitigates some of that risk a little bit? Because you sort of like, I mean, the beauty of it is like, we don't care if Heroes of the Storm's not, the top 5 most popular games. We think there's still legitimate business to be built here.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think this ties into Jimmy's point, how, if you really like grasp what your like core values are and where you want to be and what you want to do, you become very like integrated into a game, kind of entrenched. And then you do have something more concrete to be like, okay, this is who we are. This is like how much we can expect. Viewership has been this much, like whatever.
Let me just introduce one other related 100 Thieves story here. And the headline here was 100 Thieves collaborates with Lil Nas X ahead of Worlds 2021 group stage. So Lil Nas X and 100 Thieves collaborated on a surprise music video ahead of the League World Championship group stage. Lil Nas performs 2 of his songs in the video, Industry Baby and That's What I Want. And obviously it's a collaboration between these 3 parties. We talked, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago about League and their music video, and how successful they've been with producing genuinely good music and good music videos, and why other organizations haven't. Is this taking it to the next step, guys, in your mind? And where does 100 Thieves fit into this other than making the headline, right? Like, why did League need 100 Thieves to do this? I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this.
I do think this is super true to 100 Thieves' like core identity, and I like it a lot for them. Like I like this like music, gaming, like where the intersection is, and this kind of this interesting stuff they always do. It is a good question.
Couldn't Riot have just done a deal with Lil Nas X? Like, we're like, I'm trying to figure out where 100 Thieves fits into this.
So I think it's good for like a larger conversation on maybe not focusing strictly on 100 Thieves, although this is amazing, but it speaks to like just gaming and esports in general, how it's becoming more mainstream and how it's not anymore of this like it's a guy in your mom's basement. Like no, it's literally like Septic and like Ninja on like a Hollywood movie with like Ryan Reynolds. Like it's normal now, you know? So I think the 100 Thieves like Gucci collab, it's like you can walk in there and your sister or your cousin or your brother who doesn't know 100 Thieves, they'll like the Gucci 100 Thieves and like rock it as like streetwear. So this Little Nas collab is like one of those things to bring like his audience in front of gaming and like get them to know gaming. And then like just bringing it more to like a league type of point of view, like Fortnite did a collab with like Balenciaga. So and like all their stuff sold out too. And it's
We
just
tried
like
buying a hat, Sid. We tried.
I need
yes,
that
I
hoodie.
needed they had like a cute sweater. I was like, I need it. It was literally all sold out. So I mean, I think it's just like a greater conversation of like like these brands like looking at esports and gaming as like an underserved community where they can
Mhm.
like get eyes. And it's like Morgan Stanley or whoever, they need like these 13-year-old kids to like get their eyes on them so that when they need to get a mortgage or they need to get a savings account, like, oh, like I have that, like Morgan Stanley or like whatever, you know? So I think it's just like gaming becoming more mainstream and like still being in that like early age of like people discovering like, oh, gaming is more than like your typical stereotype and getting it in front of these brands who are like making these jumps into this world. So I mean, I think that's awesome. And it goes to speak that like everyone's thinking about it, like the gaming manufacturers and then esports, like everybody like in the whole like production of it.
Sid, let me push a bit here. Between these three parties, 100 Thieves, Lil Nas X, and League of Legends, who wins biggest in this collab? Who is the biggest winner here?
Oof. I would say it's probably between League of Legends and 100 Thieves because I mean, Little Nas is Little Nas. Like, if you're into rap or not, like, you know Little Nas, but like, it doesn't go the other way around. Like, the
So you don't
gaming
think he gets a new audience by doing a League of Legends?
He does, but not as big as the audience that like League and 100 Thieves gets, you know?
Got it.
Because his audience is much bigger.
I totally agree. You know, to Sid's point, you know, you got to give Lil Nas a lot of credit for doing this because him bringing his stardom, right? He was on the top of the Billboard #1
Yeah.
song for like 52 weeks or something. And you know, when I did worked on the Travis Scott event, Astronomical, you know, I think I spoke about this on the show. We were talking with FaZe Clan before that. We pulled out. We wanted to work with Epic instead. Here, you have Lil Nas basically saying, I want to work with 100 Thieves, right? And then I think the rest of it kind of developing out of the project. And so I think 100 Thieves wins really big here. They're on a hot streak for sure. But to Sid's point, Lil Nas does get an audience, still not as big as what he's giving in return.
And I think it goes
Go ahead, Sid.
I think it goes back to like when Drake like played Fortnite with Ninja. Like who was Ninja? You know, like we know, but nobody in the world knew. But as soon as Drake played with Ninja, like Ninja became a thing. And like, is Ninja the best Fortnite player in the world? Debatable, probably not, right? But like if
Not
you
today.
ask, right, not today. But if you ask like somebody who is not into gaming and they might know Ninja, but it's because of all his deals like with Adidas and like whatever, he's in the mainstream, but it's not that he's like now like the biggest or like the best like Fortnite player, you know? But it's like Drake brought him that audience and like that
Yeah.
collab. So I mean, I think it has a lot of that same like pattern of like
He went
them.
from, I think, 6 to 12 million followers shortly after that event. And a lot of people also don't remember that Travis Scott and Juju Smith from the Pittsburgh Steelers were also both part of that foursome, that quad group. And Juju, of course, later signing with FaZe Clan. So.
Jimmy, the question I had for you on this 100 Thieves story is, because you have a lot of experience with this, explain to me where money changed hands here. Where did money flow in this deal? Who paid who?
Most likely a blended agreement with a small retainer in Lil Nas X's favor, as well as if he was smart, which I imagine he was, a massive profit share. So there's probably Lil Nas is going to take $1 million just to show up at a venue. He's going to reduce that fee to put his name on this, but depending on what they sell together or what sponsors or activations they do. Like I said, knowing the gaming community is really adverse to paywalls, but friendly towards those limited transactions and activations. I think again, there's going to be a very small retainer. He's not going to waive it completely, but
and so was there an outflow of cash or an inflow of cash to 100 Thieves?
They're probably in a joint. I think there's an inflow of cash to 100 Thieves from LCS. That they're sharing with Lil Nas X, but I think Lil Nas X is taking the lion's share of everything.
Interesting.
That's my guess. That's my guess.
Do we know if anybody goes in the League of Legends launcher here or in game? Because that would probably be insane.
If the integration is there, you mean? Like the music video and everything?
Or if we have like Lil Nas's picture like in game or something. I know there's like a little.
Good question.
Because that's a lot of eyeballs.
Like Fortnite's I find these activations are easier to break down with Fortnite because the skins are the source of all revenue, right? And so all the cash flows from there and usually flows back to whoever the partners are. I find with League, it's not as clear, and maybe that's just because I'm not as familiar with League, but there's no Lil Nas X skin for League that I know of. It wasn't in this article, right? Like and it wouldn't work, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't fit.
You can have like Misfortune just be Lil Nas.
Yeah, right. Like
doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And so to me, it's always like it's a bit more unclear where and how these dollars flow. We'll have to have Matt Archambault from Riot back on the podcast to help explain this, I think. But it is an interesting one. Guys, before we sign off here, I had one last very quick story, and that is Splitgate announcing a $100,000 esports series. Just a reminder, Splitgate raised $100 million. Without going into too much detail on the series, 2 questions for you guys. One, how are you guys, like specifically Chili Mountain, thinking about new games? Like, how do you think about new games that come out with their own esports scene, and in this case, Splitgate specifically? Like, do you look at it and go, hey, we should field something? And if you do, how do you go about it? And second question is anyone surprised that after raising $100 million, the prize pool here is only $100,000? That kind of seems a little cheap. I don't know.
Yeah. So I almost like that it's $100,000 to start off with, and that they're going easy on their like source of funding. Because I guess I might be a little bit biased too, because Heroes of the Storm went really heavy before they had something proven, and then it backfired. So I've seen kind of the negative consequences of going too big too fast. But yeah, I think it's a nice approach. They could kind of do the first season, see the interest, see the engagement, see viewership on Twitch, talk to sponsors, and kind of maybe grow it from there. I do like taking it easy.
You like that measured approach?
Yeah. And then in terms of us looking at like Splitgate or a new game, the interest on TikTok was for sure, like, it caught our attention right away. I don't know if you guys saw it on TikTok. It was like every single video scrolling. It was like, Splitgate is so amazing. Splitgate's going to save us from all the big publishers and all the boring games that are out right now. A lot of TikTok creators were saying kind of a similar message. Yeah, but in terms of getting into it, I guess we'll have a conversation with players. We'll have a conversation with coaches. Look for someone who could act as a general manager and kind of go from there and take a closer look, see if the community is underserved or not.
Cool. Jimmy, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind our listeners that we had, the CEO of 1047 on the show less than a month ago. Ian, is it Pro, Paul? You're the French speaker.
It's French.
Thank you. And the one thing I think Joseph is completely on point there. The one thing we know about Ian, or that you can I think guess at, he's an engineer by nature, and these guys go off of data and they dip their toe in the water first and then pivot accordingly. So we'll see if this is this is going to be a measured success, with a massive follow up depending on what happens.
So you agree with Chillrogg, and I mean, the point is you're saying this is very in character for them.
Right. I agree. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, come out and announce, 2 million or something, right? Like, you just raised 100. I mean, no, I
for the servers.
What's that, Sid?
They need it for the servers.
That's true. No, look, I agree with you guys also. I like the measured approach. I like making sure that there is a scene there, right, at all, and letting it sort of build organically. And I would argue that's what Valorant did quite well, right? They didn't throw just a ton of money at it day one. So I think people have learned, like the publishers have learned. But we'll see and hope that it's a success. Guys, that wraps up this week's podcast. Sidkitten and Chillrogg, if you guys want to be found, followed, where can people find you, follow you, etc.?
You guys can follow me at It's Me Sidkitten on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, literally anywhere you look, I'm there. It's me, Sidkitten, and twitch.tv/Sidkitten, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I think that's everywhere. Yeah.
And then you could find me Chillrogg, same thing everywhere except for TikTok. I couldn't get Chillrogg. I'm Chillrogg2 on TikTok. And then also
and Chili Mountain. If people want to find out more, Chillrogg, where can they go?
So Chili Mountain on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. YouTube, a lot of like IRL New York City content. It's kind of fun. Any other ones, Sid?
chillymountain.com, so you can look at our awesome merch.
Very cool, guys. Definitely go check it out. The merch is awesome. And love the sort of differentiated approach that you guys are taking. So thank you both for being on the podcast. Jimmy, thank you as always. And to all of our listeners, just a couple of reminders. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We do a live stream. It's a news show these days more than anything. We cover all the news that doesn't make it into the podcast. It's a big cast. It's a lot of fun. You get to ask questions. You get to get in our faces. You get to challenge the prophet, even though you'll lose. And no, we have a lot of fun with it. And so remember, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, show up for that live stream every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And also make sure to follow Business of Esports everywhere you consume our content. So on YouTube, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, basically we're everywhere, Business of Esports. So make sure to follow us there. Thank you, all of you guys, Jimmy, Sidkitten, Chillrogg, everyone listening. Thank you guys. And we will see you next week.